Okay, so a few weeks ago, I made this like heavy bladed machete, loosely based off the cold steel something. It's a cold steel machete. Can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. Basically, it's a really wide bladed machete, and yeah, it's a cool design. Loved it. It basically goes through everything. It's heavy, and you don't want to miss your swing because it'll keep pulling. But well, if you hit what you're aiming at, it sinks itself in pretty good. But so a little more, but I may cut all of this evening. But a while back, or not a while back, about a week or so ago, I was thumbing through YouTube and saw a clip from Alien Go Boom where they were testing out a cleaver against one of their zombie heads. You really couldn't tell what it was. It was obviously some very heavy chopping weapon, large knife type, but you really couldn't tell what it is. I believe it was a meat cleaver based on the clips they've posted, but you couldn't tell that at the time. So I'm like, it'd be really cool if I made some sort of like heavy bladed cleaver type knife. Just would be cool. And so I came up with the thought around that. I remembered that I had made this. I'm like, what would it take if I basically moved the handle from here basically up to here? So if you hold it here, you basically have a large, chopping blade. Of course, I'd have this angled a little bit more. It'd have a stronger taper because, it goes to the width of the handle. So I decided that'd be interesting to do. And I actually, still have half the saw blade. This is what I'm going to cut it out of. So I'm going to have to make sure I keep it as cool as possible. Which, that's always fun, but it can be done. But I already have a notch here from where I last cut it, so I'm just going to start there and go down. If that notch wasn't there, I would actually have it probably farther up here. And then just use the pre-cut line here as my blade. And then, of course, cut in my handle a little bit. And then just take some sort of straight edge and then angle this in where I want it to. And, yeah, hopefully I'll have a nice cleaver type knife. The handle I'm going to do probably similarly. I like the way this looks. But I'll probably have another hole here. Something with like a large, hole through it, for paracord or hang up or whatever you decide to do with it. Okay, now that I have the whole thing cut out, I went ahead and drilled 2 of my holes. I'm working on the large one, but it turns out my 5/16 drill bit is completely fucked, and I need a new one, which I won't be able to get till tomorrow. Which, I guess it's kind of late at night anyway, so that's fine. But, yeah, now what I'm going to do, before I put the handle on anyway, I'm going to cut my edge in. Going to do it with the angle grinder, keep it nice and smooth. Touch over the belt sander after the handle's on. But gonna want to make sure you keep everything nice and cool while doing it, so make sure it remains wet. Also, when you go drill holes, I don't film that because the lighting over by my drill press is basically non-existent. I can see, but the camera picks up nothing, so I don't film that. But I take a torch and I remove any sort of heat treat from it because this is really hard steel and drill will not go through that on its own. Okay, so now that I have my blade made and the holes drilled / somewhat filed out, that was a pain in the ass. So all I have left to do, besides basically just sanding that smooth for me to after the handle's on it, is, well, make the handle, I guess. I got this nice chunk of hickory here. Usually I would cut this in half, drill my holes, and all that. You have it clamped to the vise, drill them, but then But then I realized, why don't I just drill the holes, then cut it in half so I don't have to drill once? Because it's a pain to try and get everything all lined up and, you know, all that. So it'd just be 10 times easier to just, you know, drill it one time. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so to put the handle on, I came inside because it is currently November. You're watching this in, like, March, but I'm filming it in November and it's cold out. Of course, if it's March, it's still probably too cold out for this, but that's not really important. Basically, what I have here is a nice mixture of some JB Weld. I'm just going to kind of smear on here. I did have a nice stick I was going to put this on, but it seems to have disappeared, so I just have one of my brass pins because, you know, it's what I have lying around. I'll be putting epoxy on it anyway, so I figured, what the hell. It's gonna kind of put a nice coating on here. Since this is pretty flat and the wood is pretty flat, I usually smooth it out fairly well. Please ignore the furnace in the background. Okay. Take one of my wood pieces. Since I have a large hole in it, they are, you know, one goes in one spot, the other goes in the other. This already has epoxy on it. I can just kind of slip it through that way. Try and line it up using the big hole in the back best I can. There it goes. And before I stick the second one in, my brass tube that I'm going to get, usually I see most people do it, they have some sort of brass tube. I have a 5.56 shell casing. I drilled the hole to fit that. It's a little thin compared to most, but it's what I have, so it's what I'm going to use. I'm just going to
Fill this epoxy in it. Put that in, again, twisting it. Plus, I think it's just fun to have, you know, an actual shell casing in it. Then just do the same on the other side.
Okay, as you can see, I already went ahead and trimmed off the shell casing and the 2 pins, so that way they're mostly close. I'll sand them down smooth when I go to sand everything. But now basically what I'm going to do is take a ferrier's rasp and get this closer to an actual handle size, because that is blocky and very ugly. But yeah, then once I do that, it's going to sand everything up and go from there. Okay, now that I have this nice and good and sharpened, I only sharpened it to like 220, which is still pretty heavy for most knives, but considering this is a cleaver, machete type thing, and almost every machete I've seen around where I live is sharpened with an angle grinder or a bench grinder, which are probably not even 80 grit. That thing's doing pretty good. So now all I have to do is finish up the handle, which I got this chunk of ferrier's rasp. I'm going to heat up part of it, burn some texture into it, give it a good grip, and then of course just take a torch and kind of finish burning a little bit, and seal with linseed oil when I remember to get paper towels so I can do that. I have forgotten twice now. And then while I'm doing that, I'm going to also forge that into a knife. Oh.